Sound check. Let's get sound check. Say something, guys.
How's it going?
Hello, hello.
All right, cool. It sounds good. There should be somebody on who can confirm our sound. Sounds good. Sound is good. All right. Okay, welcome everybody to CanHammer Podcast, episode 198. Two more episodes. Well, one more episode if the 200th one doesn't count, until 200. And we still have not decided what we're going to do for that. Any ideas?
So episode 200 is going to be in like 3 months when we figure something
Yeah,
out.
we'll just take a long break until we figure it out. But maybe we'll give away my GSC army. I don't know. But yeah, so welcome everybody to CanHammer, and we're going to podcast tonight about the surprising bomb of the recent FAQ. And so I have my two usual luminaries with me, Francois and Nick. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
How's lockdown life?
It's lovely.
Well, I mean, it's boring, but I'm painting a lot, so at least there's that.
There was just the Steam Winter Sale. I shouldn't be bored.
I did play a lot of video games over the Christmas holidays, but now I'm back to painting a lot.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah. I'm still playing Cyberpunk, working my way through. Actually, I've been reading the Witcher novels, and
same.
so it actually kind of makes me want to go back and play The Witcher again, Witcher 3. I don't know.
Have you already played it?
Yeah, I played it when it came out, like a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, yeah, that's good. I'm surprised you're still playing Cyberpunk. That to me it was like 35 hours, and did my thing with Pan Am, and that was it. That's all I needed.
it's all about the love scenes, man.
Yeah.
No, I've just been taking it slow because I've been doing. I'm a completionist, so I've been doing all the side quests, which is like never ending. And I only play maybe like half an hour a night, like usually after I do a stream. And some nights I don't play at all because I'm cycling or whatever. So it's been taking a while, but still keeping my interest for now. Yeah.
Good.
I don't know. Something viscerally fun about shooting people with a shotgun. So, I mean, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah.
I like the Mantis Claws. That was good. Just you really get in there and.
I actually quite like the little hacks that you can do on people, and so I give myself a challenge where I have to try and get through like one of these missions without ever being seen and never shooting anybody. And so it's an interesting kind of way of playing. But okay, so before we start, I want to shout out to all our followers and supporters, patrons, and people in the Discord. Thanks very much, guys, for sticking with us. Shout out to Dan at Red Dragon. Dan and Dylan at Red Dragon, our main sponsors, and I hope they're doing okay. They're, of course, under all the same restrictions that everybody else is under, but they're still delivering and doing pickup. So if you want your stuff, do still get the stuff from the Red Dragon. Let's show them some love. So the certainly no lack of releases, and Death Guard is coming out very soon, and sounds like Dark Angels will be next, following Drukhari, I guess. Drukhari and the Sisters box, I guess that's next, then Dark Angels, but they already the regimental thing that they write, like that's in like the voice of a guardsman, or like the recruiting people to guardsmen, that always seems to hint at what's coming up next, like next.
There was a really funny one about Dark Angels this week, yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty good. So I've already heard some rumors from people, or maybe they're just wish listing, that the Lion is coming back, but I seriously doubt that. That would be crazy.
That'd be awesome.
It would be awesome. I'd have to paint my Dark Angels then.
No, we need Angron first.
Angron. So one-dimensional.
But he does that dimension.
Hey, you've already got two Chaos Primarchs. We needed another Loyalist one, balance things out.
No, loyalists. You don't need any more.
Yours have wings and shit.
Yeah,
too.
your guy has like 5 Warlord traits. So
exactly. That's true.
So you don't need more. You just put all your Warlord traits under the one guy. So we'll see. I highly doubt we're going to see another Primarch anytime soon. Speaking of Primarchs, the new Horse Heresy book is coming out. The fourth book for Siege of Terra. I can't remember what it's called now, but the next one's coming out, which is cool. And have you guys read that Indomitus series, the one that started off with G-Man, and then the second book is coming out soon? What's it called? I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, they just announced it. The second book in the series is coming out, but it's like 40K, like right now, Indomitus Crusade.
Mm-hmm. I'm still high on Horus Heresy. I read the first 3 or 4 in the last couple of months, and I'm taking a break reading The Witcher, and I'll jump back on them there and pretty soon.
I'm reading the Watchers of the Throne, the second book from that.
Oh, that's a great book. It's Custodes in that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first one. It's a little weird where they switch voices chapter to chapter. The first one I listened on Audible, and the narrator, I think there was more than one narrator. Anyway, that was a little weird, but I'm reading the number 2 in paper form now. I'm enjoying it so far.
Nice. And the reason I ask, of course, because Custodes make appearance in the second book, because now they're striking out as part of the Crusade. They're no longer stuck on Terra, and so people might be interested in that. But
they also make an appearance in False Gods, where Horus cuts them all down.
Okay, cool. And yet I found it hard in the past. I used to read 40K and 30K novels that like one after the other or whatever, and then I found it really confusing to switch back and forth between the two millennia. So I like to keep them separate now, sort of like Horus Heresy and like nowadays. Did you guys ever read the Beast Arises series about like this fake orc universe?
Not yet. It's on my list. It's on my my bedside table right now. Actually, it's the next one I'm going to read.
That was a pretty good series actually, about like super smart
really?
orcs, like taking over. It was pretty cool.
Oh, is this like a non-canon kind of what?
I think so. I think it's like
it?
like a alternate storyline, maybe.
Okay.
I thought it was happening like hundreds of years after the heresy, but still in the proper timeline. But
Okay,
I'm not
I didn't
sure.
get that at all from reading it. I thought it was some alternate weird universe where orcs are smart.
Well, to be fair, orcs are the glue that holds the universe together, right? They whatever they believe becomes
Like
true.
literally, you kill them and their blood kind of glues things together. Is that what you're talking about? That's why I need so many.
No, you know this, right? That the reason why the emperor's not dead is because the orcs believe he's alive.
Okay.
Because the orc magic works this way. That's why orc guns work. But if you kill an orc and take their gun, you find out it's just a tin can with bolts in it rattling. It's not actually a gun. It only works because the orc believes it works.
My mind has been blown.
I'm pretty sure that's actually the lore
So
behind
next
the
time I
orcs.
play against
I think so,
orcs,
too.
can I just not believe and then they won't do me any damage?
That's also why their red buggies go faster, because they
It's
believe
not
it
whether
makes
you
them go
believe;
faster.
it's whether the orcs
Okay,
believe.
so I should be persuasive. All right, cool. This weekend, Hammer Out Cancer virtual charity event starting literally tomorrow. And tonight they're just screaming some kind of warm-up games, mostly to test the setup. But it's apparently all ready to go starting tomorrow. Check it out, charityhammer.com, full schedule and commentating schedule as well. A bracket for predictions. There will be prizes for people who predict the winners. And also the donate button. So if you're looking for a cause to donate to, then do check out charityhammer.com this weekend for Hammer Out Cancer. We'll be hosting the stream right after we finish here. I'm going to be handing over the keys to the car over to the guys at Charity Hammer. And starting from tomorrow, you'll be seeing games right here on CanHammer as part of the second stream, which we've been doing since the beginning now, which is cool. So do check that out, guys, charityhammer.com. All right, one more thing to talk about before we get started is thanks to the guys at Charity Hammer, I have now figured out, because, from people smarter than me with computers, how to get commentators on the stream without the Twitch delay, because that's annoying if you're trying to commentate. And it's as simple as just screen sharing to Discord, apparently, and having a voice chat. So what I'm going to do next week with my erstwhile colleagues here is to try and get that working. And if we can get that working, what we're going to do in lieu of games, because we can't play right now, is we're going to have live strategy sessions where we set up a situation or a problem with models actually on the table. and then I'm going to get people coming in as, you know, one or two commentators to discuss how they would approach this situation or what they would do, and then we can even play it out for a turn or whatever, like kind of little strategy sessions with actual kind of tabletop setup. So that's kind of idea that I had now that I figured out how to do this. So we'll be testing that. So look out for that in the next few weeks or something like that. And it's the next best thing to actually playing, I guess. Play myself.
You like playing with yourself?
Can I borrow your Marine Army, Francois?
So Darren
Sure,
is
it's not like I'm
saying
using
check
it.
out his OnlyFans / CanHammer, basically.
Exactly. It will be live at midnight. Okay. All right. We are now going to go to the topic of du jour, which is the sudden drop of a bunch of FAQs, erratas, and a complete update of the points manual. What do you guys think about that? There was nothing about this. Nobody was leaking it. Nobody knew this was coming, and boom, it just dropped. What do you guys think?
I think this is a chapter approved that they couldn't get printed in China for whatever reason, and they decided to just give us as PDFs.
Possibly.
It's about the right time of year, and it's the right scope, at least the points changes, because every army, more or less, like changed a little bit. It feels a lot like the yearly chapter approved points rejiggering, but as a PDF.
Yeah. Now, I heard or read somewhere that they're going to, because you don't want to like print out 50-something pages, and we just bought this book 6 months ago, they're going to give you like a supplement in a White Dwarf to like replace your Munitorum book, because now it's completely changed. And as well, the format has changed, which is super annoying now. When you're trying to go through and figure out what's changed and what's not changed. And for the love of God, GW, just highlight the points changes somehow. Do something. Like, I don't understand why they don't do that. They do that for AOS already. Like, it's so annoying, especially now the format's changed too. And it's like, oh, did it change? Oh no, it's just part of the cost now. It's like really difficult.
See, what I do
Or
is
just-
I wait for someone on the internet to add it all up and tell me what changed.
I was going to say, I just wait for Battlescribe to update.
Yeah, it's like, but it's so simple, like literally, like, oh man, and they do it for AOS already, which is the thing, right? Like,
Well, they also don't update the AOS app either, so I don't know. Get some, you can give some. I don't know.
Anyway, okay, so as we said, a bunch of factions got FAQs and erratas, and we got changes to our missions, how they play, and we got points updates. So we're gonna try and go through a bunch of those, and we'll see what comes up. Obviously, you know, we won't go through every single point change in every single faction. We'll mostly talk about stuff we know about. I'm not going to talk about Custodes tonight because I already did that. We'll let the other fellows talk about some things. So we'll do the points afterwards. We'll go through the main big changes first. Okay. First of all, first turn now, you roll off, and if you win the roll, you take first. Boom. Now, it's hard to talk about this in isolation without also talking about some of the other changes to primary in order to. So what they're trying to do is to smooth out the first turn wins sort of problem. But what do you think about this rule where you just roll and you have to take first?
It's great. It's perfect. Because, you know, a lot of people argue, well, it's a strategic game. You want to maintain this element of choice, you know, because it adds the strategic element, but it's roll off is only giving one player choice, so it disadvantages the other player. So
Right.
in that situation, yeah, somebody's getting choice, but then it's only one player, and then you can look at he deployed this way, so it's more advantageous for me to take first turn this way because of how the mission is set up, or you know what, I'm well protected, he's not going to be on the objectives, I'm going to go second. So, you know, maybe it wasn't necessarily first speculative. Maybe it's not necessarily first the problem. Maybe the problem is being able to choose where the other player doesn't get input. So I like it. Just roll it. That person goes first. Hopefully you deployed in a fashion that allowed you to take advantage of either going first or second as best as you could.
Yeah, and if the matchup is of equal skilled players, it doesn't. So let me rephrase that. I think having the choice only really helps you a ton if you're facing a player of a lesser skill level. Because if you're at the same skill level or at the very high skill level, usually players deploy in a way that they won't get screwed, whatever happens, right? You try and deploy in a way that will hedge your bets, and it doesn't matter all that much if you go first or second because you don't know in advance. And so that choice would, you're right, it gives choice to only one player, so that's already unfair, quote unquote, in this way. But it would also compound skill differences, I think, even more. And that's already it's already something there. So I like it. Yeah, it's good choice, good change.
I mean, and there's also an argument too. Like you could, in a sense, design your army to always go second, knowing that, say, for example, 70% of the players want to go first. So in that situation, you have like a 75% chance or whatever it would be of going second, thus aligning with the philosophy of your army design. So this way you have to be able to either go first or second.
So actually, that's how I would play my Custodes, right? Like we don't really have Alpha Strike, so most people want to go first against me, and so I'm happy to go second. And the change to primary scoring would be awesome for me. Is awesome for me. So actually, I would love to just go second, and now I don't have the choice, right? But I see what you guys mean, because it's you feel like you have a choice in the old system, but not really, because you deployed in such a way in case you didn't get the choice. So it's not like you just like deployed like full out, right? Because you knew you were going like the old ITC, right? And
yeah, the old ITC, you knew you were going first when you were deploying.
Exactly. And so you didn't know you were going first anyway. And if you happen to win the roll, now you really don't think about it because you already planned to go first or not to go first. So in a way, that choice was a fake choice or a psychological choice. And so this just takes that bit of extra 10 seconds of thinking away. So, one of the reasons they gave for changing these things was also kind of speed up the game, less like analysis paralysis, like stuff like that. So maybe that is true. If you think pragmatically about the games like we've been playing, Francois, like we generally know who wants to go first and second, and whoever wins the roll, that tends to happen because we've already decided how we want to play it, right?
And more often than not, we both wanted to go second, at least in recent games that we've played. Like last game we played, we both wanted to go second, and then you won the roll and you made me go first. And I think so I think on a good table anyway, the going first could still be an advantage, but it wasn't, I don't think, as big an advantage as some people made it out to be. And now with the change to primary scoring that we're going to talk about in a minute, I actually think that right now going second is pretty much always better.
Yeah. I mean, this is all in response to some statistics that, whatever, 67% or whatever. But to be honest, I've almost always favored going second. But that's the nature of my army.
Yeah, and playstyle and army choices will, of course, impact that.
And 6 months from now, nobody's even forget that we used to be able to choose. So
Yeah, exactly.
People just don't like
change. Just like everybody used to argue or complain about the tables changing, and nobody talks about that anymore.
And I'm secretly super happy
size.
they didn't bring back C's.
Yeah, that I'm glad.
Yeah. So it would be like, okay, roll off. You have to take first, but you can C's. I'm like, no. Big step backwards. So that's good. Okay, so again, to counteract some of the kind of first turn advantage, they have changed the way that the second player scores primary in the last round. They have made it so you don't score at the end of your command phase. You get your whole turn and you score your primary at the end of the game, basically, effectively, which this is a huge change because depending on your army, you could almost kind of guarantee 10 to 15 points at the end of the game now, whereas it was very much not like that before.
Yeah, and in fact, before the player going second, that was part of the reason why going second was often worse, is that the player going second didn't get that last bit of movement. Yeah. But the player going first would score and then move and interact, and in the last battle round could move off of the objectives. And it's just, there was a big imbalance there. So I'm glad they did that. The scoring at the end for the fifth battle round, it's a huge change.
So I'll have to see games first before I decide how much it's going to affect or how much it's going to influence whether second is better or not. Because before, like we said, in the last battle round, person going first can jump off all the objectives and do their best, do what they could to prevent the other player from scoring in their next turn, not having to worry about what the repercussions would be for them. Now that's not the same. So yeah, the second player gets the opportunity to at least score, but player number one, may still be on objectives, which would, prevent the score more, whatever, objective.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
From
I think it balances things out well because going first still has advantages. You get board control earlier. You get your reserves to come down earlier. You can get in an alpha strike if you have the speed to do it, and if things are out in the open. So there's still all these advantages to going first. But now the player going second can just go, well, in my last turn, I don't necessarily need to kill anything. I can just like move this OBSEC unit onto that objective, steal it, and now suddenly I've scored my 10 or 15 points.
So for sure, this changes the way the first player plays his last turn or even his fourth turn. And, and the first player almost can't afford to sit till second and third turn now, almost a little bit. I mean, because he knows the second player is going to get a chance to score like 5, 10, 15 points at the end of the game with no input from him. As the second player, it means you don't have to go worry too much about that flooding the board first turn. Like, you got time, you're going to get 10, 15 points at the end of the game. As long as if you can keep a few OBSEC units back to the end of the game, you got 15 points against a lot of armies. So that it really changes the play strategy throughout the game because you know that fifth turn is coming. And I also like how it makes you play to the end. Because
it's the kind of change that ripples through the entire game when you think about it.
Yeah, it's not simply player number 2 battle round 5 is jumping on objectives and winning. It's exactly that. It affects the whole ebb and flow of the game from turn 1, in my opinion.
Yeah,
which is good.
So this is going to have a big change, and we won't really know until we get to play it. But I feel like the combination of the first turn roll change and this primary scoring in the last turn change has almost, it's not giving us new missions. Let's not go too crazy on the hyperbole, but it's changed the way you play the missions without giving us new missions.
Yeah.
And
especially when you add in all the secondary changes they also threw at us at the same time.
Okay, well, let's go on to those now. So some secondaries were changed, mostly because they were bad. And I like that they're doing this rather than just scrapping secondaries and giving us new ones. I would like for all the secondaries to be viable, depending on what you're playing, what your opponent's playing, what mission you're playing, right? But as it was, there were some secondaries, as we knew from our discussion on the secondaries episode, that needed a little bit of tweaks. So I'm glad that they did this without just scrapping everything. So number 1, while we stand, while we fight, used to be most expensive models. 3 most expensive models in your army, and now it's units, which is a huge change from basically character hiding to like literally could be anything depending on what faction you're playing. It makes it both easier and harder, I think.
Get ready for Akalon or whatever Custody Terminator bombs, or whatever the one Unleash the Lions can do.
So that is one that obviously we've been talking a lot about, but there are also lots of other units that can, combat squad and stuff like that. So, and at the end of the day, so that is a little trick we can do, but you got to do a lot of things to make that worthwhile. So it's a balance. And it's not like we had that much trouble scoring while we stand before.
No.
So, and in fact, sure, if you want to spend 700 points and bring 10 Alaris and 2 CP to split them, then you get your 5 points.
I haven't been on the receiving end of it because we haven't tested it yet, Darren. We were planning on doing that whenever we can play again, but it still feels like a gimmick to me, that one.
Yeah, it's 5 points.
But fair enough. Yeah, that would only be 5 points for that unit. There's 2 other units you would have to nominate. Yeah, that's true. I like it better. Right now, I like it better because I haven't played any games and I'm just thinking about it. Because people can't just hide those marginally more expensive small characters somewhere. They know they purchased them just for their free 15 points. How that's going to affect armies like AdMech, where they can have the disintegrators still be more expensive. I guess maybe it limits their chicken walker bombs in terms of the size of unit. But who knows?
Guard will be like that too, right? Like, Armies that have cheap
So
infantry.
for guard, if you want to take While We Stand We Fight, you can take squadrons of lemon russes, and all of a sudden you have to kill 9 lemon russes to get rid of the While We Stand We Fight. Now, I'm not saying that's a good idea, but I'm saying it's something you can do.
Yeah, so if you're an army that has cheap infantry, basically everything other than your infantry will be your While We Stand targets, right? You know what it kind of feels like? It feels like gangbusters, but reverse. So I guess if you're trying to deny it, you have to kill those probably tougher units. And if you're trying to score, you just keep them alive. So it kind of feels a little bit like gangbusters, but like obviously not gangbusters, but it gives me that kind of feel. Like it's turning into gangbusters a little bit.
I also think it's going to mean that we're going to see it less often because a lot of lists, your most expensive unit is something that you're gonna want to be actively taking part in the game, and your second most expensive unit too, and your third one too, probably. So it may be that we just see people take that one a lot less than we've seen.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how that might change list design and games, and like how many times it's taken and how it affects games. I like it better now than before. But I'm not entirely sure.
It's definitely a little bit riskier to take for most factions. And I think if you're planning to take it, you have to premeditate it and design your list around it a little bit. Yeah. Because you could choose like who it's going to be, just basically like maybe you take one guy out of the unit or something, right? Or change a weapon or something, or make 2 units the same price so that you get to choose. Or so, it's...
At the very least, it seems more interactive. Whereas before, it could be designed that you have a completely non-interactive, almost free 15 points for some armies, which I appreciate now. You have to actually expose yourself.
For sure. Warlord Ubba, welcome. He says that we are more interesting than Long War TV. What do you guys think of that?
I agree. I don't know.
Interesting in appearance, or?
Well, that's thanks to Darren and Francois.
Well, I do have a interesting vest on tonight.
You do.
Thank you very much, Warlord Ubba. We appreciate you watching. Okay, let's move on to the next secondary, which is Bring It Down. Okay, this is a really funny thing about Bring It Down. So if you guys remember 2-3 months, the whole time leading up to the release of the 9th, it was like, oh my god, vehicle meta, vehicle's so good, vehicle meta, prepare for vehicle meta. I don't think we've seen that vehicle meta. Partly because Bring It Down was so punishing to heavy vehicle armies, and you could punish those armies very easily with things like the new Melta, which basically put a dent into almost all vehicles. So we never saw that vehicle meta, and now they're maybe trying to bring that vehicle meta a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see it. I mean, we'll see it a little bit more maybe, and now you don't automatically lose 15 points for playing Imperial Guard or AdMech, which is good. But the issue with vehicles is they're not nearly as good as people thought they were going to be. Like shooting in combat is not actually that great because you're stuck shooting at whatever the enemy threw at you, or you have a blast weapon and you can't shoot it anyway. So that's one thing. But also, if you want to see a cool magic trick, just put a squad of sisters, whatever they're the Dominions or whatever, the ones with Meltas in front of a bunch of tanks and watch them disappear immediately. Yeah. It's just really rough for non-invulnerable saved vehicles in the meta.
Most vehicles don't have invulns, so
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think you may see some changes to lists to take advantage of it. But what I think the biggest impact this might be is those armies that already use a lot of vehicles by virtue that that's what's good for them. It might shift them a little higher in terms of how they're
really good for AdMech. I mean, Guard is already is in the basement anyway, so that's not going to help them. But AdMech is kind of on the cusp of being really, really good, I think.
I think because their 5 Chicken Walker unit used to give up 10 points.
Yeah, now it's 5 gives up 5, yeah.
Yeah, so and then they can still have their Flyers and their Scorpius, and like you'd have to level the AdMech, which I've struggled to do. I don't think I've done yet, to just maybe get the 15 points now.
Yeah, you go from an easy 15 to, well, it's probably going to be closer to 10 unless the game's around, right?
Or even 8. Who knows?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the fact that New Melta still exists in abundance, we're not going to see this crazy vehicle meta that everybody thought would come. but the armies that need those vehicles will now feel less bad about bringing them.
Yeah.
And so, we already got Custodians people talking about 1, 2, 3 palace tanks now and not worrying about giving up, points for that. So not that they gave up a lot of points.
Or another army that I think you might see more vehicles would be Necrons. You might see more Ghost Arcs.
Maybe, yeah.
As
Especially if they got the old shielding going on. Melta just seems too strong now. Like I know Melta sucked for a whole edition, but the flat part of the damage is like too many wounds. I feel like.
Yeah. And the AP is so high that unless they start moving tanks to 2-up saves, it's just like it feels real bad when someone shoots you with a Melta and your Lemon Russ doesn't have a save at all.
Yeah, I mean, even then it's only a 6-up, but
yeah, I know, but it'd be something.
But like that's kind of the fluff of Melta. Like it like the front of your boarding pod just drills right through like a spaceship, like no problem, with the Melta burners on it. But it's that the old Melta rule was arguably okay, but not great. But the new Melta with like +2 and +4 damage, like that's just crazy. Like
yeah. And even before they got that, like I played Chris's sisters a bunch of times, and the Melta was already kind of oppressive with the rules that the sisters get with the Miracle Dice and the strats that they get. And now on top of that, now they get more shots and more damage.
It's like, oh, here's my 6. Take that. And it's like, yeah, for sure. Okay, so it's a good change, but I'm not sure it's going to shake things up as much as maybe they think it will or they want it to, but it's a good change because it was too punishing before.
Yeah.
Okay, and speaking of punishing, Nick, we got Abhor the Witch, which against armies like Nick's or all your armies basically. So psychic heavy armies combined with things like Assassinate, basically you like giving up full max secondaries very easily. And Abhor the Witch was the big part of that. 5 points for killing a Psyker character, now down to 3, and a whole 3 points for just killing a Psyker unit, now down to 2. I feel like it's still a take against those armies, but it's not like the easy 15 that it was before.
So I haven't played like Thousand Suns mono, or Zinch Demons mono. Those would be the big kind of chaos ones that would suffer from that. Though I do still play like heavy Thousand Sun elements, like Rubric Marines would have counted for 3 points before. Scarabs would have counted. Armon, a couple of sorcerers, those all would have counted. But the way the army was designed before, it was easy enough that Armon, generally, your other sorcerer, wouldn't die. I mean, maybe they'd kill the Rubric Marines, but they're devoting so much resource to that. Or the Scarab Terminators, if you had them in time, they just kept coming back. So, I mean, I didn't mind giving up that 5 points if it meant that the other player spent their whole game trying to do it. I think the biggest impact this will have is for Grey Knights. I'm not entirely sure where Grey Knights sit. I don't think they're sitting super well now, especially the feels bad that they're 1 wound Marines. I'm like the only 1 wound Imperial Marines now. But knowing before where you had to either sacrifice, either you didn't want the easy kills for those 3 points, so you wouldn't have any Strike Marines. But what you're doing then was sacrificing board presence or the ability to get objectives, because I don't care who you are, 2 or 3 Terminator blocks is not going to be able to cover enough board space on those missions that are required to have 2 objectives just to score 5 points. So you had to have Strike Marines, but Strike Marines, a 5-man squad, is disposable. That's like, here's 3 points, and I'm trading that for 5 points. But I'm trying to get my primary, but I'm giving you secondary. So bottom line, who knows? This might help Grey Knights up until their book just edge a little bit more or make it feel less bad as they're playing against the opponent. Not entirely sure. I think maybe the biggest impact right now is since it isn't as rewarding to kill like a Psyker character anymore, you might see more Imperial Psykers out there. Now Space Marine players are going to look at their librarians and think, well, I don't need to, leave this at home anymore because Abhor the Witch isn't going to be as rewarding fighting, a Thousand Suns player who's only going to give up 1 unit anyway.
Yeah, I think that's actually the bigger change. Is
Yeah.
it'll stop people from feeling like they have to not take a psyker because
Hmm.
just in case they run into those kinds of armies.
Yeah.
And I've definitely built my lists that way, just because I'm like,
Hmm.
well, it'd be nice to have a White Scars psyker because they have some cool spells, but is it really worth giving up the free points if I run into a Thousand Suns or a Grey Knights or even like a general Chaos player with lots of
Yeah.
psychers?
Yeah.
Usually the answer to that was no. Now the answer is probably yes. I might want to take a
You
psyker.
think about it, for sure,
Hmm.
it makes that decision point in your list building.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me, and it's always been like this, is so obviously there are some armies who are super psyker heavy. Many armies have some access to psychic powers, but and then there are some armies that don't have access at all. And so there's always that have not have thing. And what's interesting about the secondary design is that there's a whole set of secondaries devoted to the psychic phase, either doing stuff or, as like in a boar where you can't do stuff, that's like your non-psyker way of getting back at psychic armies. So that really interests me from a design point of view. Like, you're singling out like a single phase, a single type of unit, and like trying to balance the haves and haves not through the mission design, which with a boar obviously did not work very well. And similarly with the other psychic secondaries, they're pretty bad too. So it seems like that's just not working, and whether they should just abandon the whole psychic side of the secondaries or not, I don't know. But it's an interesting way to see them try and fix a boar and see if that kind of works out. And so now maybe if a boar is less, now, as you said, Francois, you will start bringing your Inquisitor or whatever. Like a lot of Custodes players have started putting Inquisitors back into their list now. And then maybe now you will see people taking Psychic Ritual more if they're not a Psychic heavy army. You know, like if you park a Inquisitor behind 7 Shield Guardians, like you're not going to get to that Inquisitor anytime soon.
A lot of the reason we're seeing secondaries, I think, including the psychic ones that aren't being taken, is just because the original design of these GT mission ones, they're just some that are always going to be taken. So those other, like the psychic ones, are competing with ones that are just more guaranteed points. So, or what's the one recon called now?
Occasional fronts.
Engage in all fronts. There's no player out there that hasn't taken that, unless you're Necrons now, where you can do the reverse engage
You
on
can
all
do
fronts.
reverse engage.
Yeah. So I think that's another big issue, is that there's just such a big discrepancy in terms of how easy some of these are to get, that by the time you get to the psychic ones, they just don't seem worth it. And then, 15 points on psychic ritual is tempting, but I would rather get 5 points on another throwaway one than risk my whole game on, not getting that 15 points. So
Well, like even a non-psychic army like mine managed to stop Will from getting his 15 points on Psychic Ritual, right? Just from using a couple of strats and some poor dice rolls.
that's right.
So
Oh, and by the way, they did clarify in this fact that those strats do work
Yeah.
to stop
Yeah.
psychic actions. I mean, that's how we've always
Yeah.
played it. So we've been playing it right, but apparently there was some confusion.
I think
when they
actually,
clarified.
while we're talking about that, one of the big things that I don't know if it's been answered, I'll have to study it more, but there's an argument now that this Thousand Suns add 6 inches to their casting applies to the psychic
like the
secondaries.
distance that you can do it from.
Yeah, because all abilities or whatever that affect psychic powers affect the psychic secondaries. And Thousand Suns add distance to their psychic cast. So I think there's an argument to be made that you can do the psychic ritual at 12 inches or the mental interrogation at 24 inches. Now, if people listening don't take that to your next game and say, "Oh,
Nick
Nick
Blackburn.
on CanHammer said you got to do." Yeah, Nick Blackburn. Nick, nobody but Blackburn said on CanHammer I can do this. No, I'm saying that there might be an argument out there. So do your research.
FAQ needs an FAQ for sure.
Maybe, yeah.
All right, let's move on. So speaking about FAQs, we're just going to go through a bunch of the other rules clarifications. We don't have to talk about them if there's nothing to talk about. They clarified this whole thing about eligible, ineligible, fight last things, and fight first things, and fight second last things. And so basically, if you're not eligible, you're not eligible. You can't interrupt. You can't do the counter stratagem. It's just so they kind of clarified that. They clarified that you cannot start an action in one zone teleport to another zone and complete that action in another zone.
4,000 Suns players. You used to be able.
See, that just seems like common sense to me, but okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, what you used to be able to do with Cult of Duplicity is you have one sorcerer, you'd have like a unit or something start the action, and the sorcerer would teleport that unit starting the action. And because they didn't cast the spell, the action wasn't interrupted, so you could throw him in the back
Now
corner.
they get the scram.
I tried to do that against Dom at one tournament, but he still zoned me out, so I lost.
Okay, the next confirmed that rules that deny space, like scramblers and stuff like that, overrule all things that allow you to get closer. So we kind of already knew that, but that's just a final clarification. They clarified the order of operations for AP and modifiers so that defensive things are after all modifiers. So some people argued, for example, with my Terminator rule, that you get AP2, I ignore it, then you add your +1 AP from, whatever doctrine thing. But
that's another one that we were playing, right?
I never even thought about that, to be honest.
Those people that honestly, that thought that that's how it worked, need to look in a mirror hard. Look in the mirror. And
There's some people with way too much time on their hands.
Yeah, consider the choices you're making in your life. That you're going through that and deciding if there's a timing issue between when you apply this rule against that rule. And like, settle down, man.
It's like the people who said that a Storm Shield gave you a 2-up invulnerable at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm glad that that's clarified now, and we've been doing it like that anyway. And then they clarified a bunch of things with regards to embarking and shooting from vehicles and all that sort of stuff.
And a big one. I don't know if it's on your list to mention, but it just came to me. They did clarify that you can deploy your oversized models.
Yes, but it still can't do anything in the first turn.
And you're allowed to put it down. Wait, no, did I read that wrong? I thought that they fixed that.
You better get on Comp 40K now. Start a
Well, I'm gonna have to look at it again because I thought that they changed that, and as long as it's as much into the zone as it can be, you're okay now. But maybe I'm wrong. No, actually,
they just clarified that you can deploy it legally as long as the base fits, that you can overhang. Yeah. But they didn't say that it is now fully eligible to do stuff in the first turn. That's as far as I can read it, anyway.
But where did it used to say that you couldn't do anything in the first turn?
Because you technically don't fit.
That's in like the rules. That's in the general rules.
No, it's in the GT book. So you don't fit though. Therefore, you don't get to do anything.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at it.
Anyway,
but
there was yet another monster thread by on 40K, Comp 40K. I think it was about 6 pages. It was a questionnaire of some kind. Anyway, and
well, there goes my plan to buy a Harridan.
Okay, and of course they clarified that psychic actions obey all rules that govern psychic powers. Okay, let's go on to talk maybe about some points changes. So I've talked extensively about Custodes points changes already. I still feel like, other than Drukhari, maybe Custodes Bikers came out of this points, out of all things that changed, pretty good. Maybe some of the best drops. Drukhari got a whole bunch of drops. Like their whole army dropped like a
That's
ton.
Probably what their points are going to be in the Codex, because the Codex is coming so soon that they must know. Those must be the Codex points.
They must be. But so I heard some other changes. Maybe you guys can comment on this. So a bunch of Marine obnoxious units went up by 5. Eradicators, Outriders, and Inceptors. You can't res an ATV anymore.
So I got to do it exactly twice in one game against you.
Shocking. I'm shocked. Honestly, who could have predicted that wasn't intended? Who could have?
So the Marine point changes are, fine. They're pretty minor. 5 points here and there on units like Eradicators and Scepters. That's fine. I'm still going to include Inceptors and Eradicators in my list, and you lose 25, 30 points here and there. It makes a difference, but it's the kind of change that I like, because yes, those units were undercosted, but you don't also want to jump right to now they're in the garbage, right? Mm-hmm. So that kind of incremental change is good. The one that really, really puzzles me and that I'm actually kind of annoyed at is, why did they have Outriders go up, but not Blade Guard? Because Outriders are already not that good, even at the old points. Like point for points, regular Bikers are basically the same. And competitive lists were already not spamming Outriders. Like you might have a unit in a list. But you weren't seeing 9 Outrider lists, despite the fact that I do own and have 9 painted. I wasn't playing them all in the same list, but they went up 5 points. Meanwhile, the unit that is just as big, I think, of a not problem, but just as good as Eradicators and Inceptors were, Blade Guard, that one didn't change. So that's a little puzzling.
Yeah.
So my 15 Blade Guard list is still a go.
Yeah. I was hoping that they would have realized that their first FAQ of the Apothecary points cost was actually a mistake and it should have been the higher points cost, but apparently not.
Oh, here's another one that's really puzzling. Pharaohs went up again.
Good.
By 20 points. But he's not even good anymore.
Care.
People haven't been using it
He
forever.
was obnoxious.
Like, is Pharaoh still paying for the sins of the first Iron Hand supplement before it got nerfed?
Well, just like Eldar is paying for their sins the last 10 years.
He's at 160 points now. Like,
I won't be happy.
He's just not worth taking.
Be happy till he's as much as Trajan, at least. Okay? Like, seriously. That dude needs to go up at least 3 more times. Until you literally want to burn the model. Okay. And then I'll be happy. Okay. Yeah, it's weird.
But yeah, in general, for Space Marines, some small point changes, like welcome tuning, but nothing super major.
So Necrons, the Nightbringer went up to 370, a 20-point rise. Do you think that takes it out of contention, or are you still bringing that guy?
No, you're either bringing him or you're not. I don't think that 20 points is going to change it.
Yeah, maybe it puts a slight squeeze on the triple Satan lists, but it's still extremely good for 370.
It's like you're taking out a couple warriors here and there, or you're not putting on that special Cryptek equipment that you had just in case that you've used once in 7 games. Like
they've got the granularity to absorb that for sure.
Yeah, they do. Another big one, question mark for Necrons. I don't know if you're about to mention it. Sorry to interrupt, Aaron. As Reanimator went down from 110 to 80, I think.
It's still terrible.
I don't know. I'd like to try it.
That's still what, like 5 warriors?
Is that the?
Yeah, but if you run 2 blobs, right? That could be.
Is that the War of the Worlds Walker thingy?
Yeah, it's the small one, not the big one.
Yeah, smaller one. It's the one that. It hangs out near a warrior blob, and it makes the reanimation on a 4-up, not a 5-up. And then warriors reroll 1. So it gives them actually not an insignificant difference.
But he needs to be within 6 inches of the unit of warriors, and he dies to a stiff breeze.
Yeah, but look at all the terrain we have on tables. He can hide behind a wall.
I mean, at least now I'm not going to laugh at you if you bring it.
Is it a character?
No, it's just
that
monster.
sucks then. That's
monster.
No,
I mean, now there's an argument to be made, and I'm not going to look at your list with it in it and immediately think you're an idiot.
I'm going to do what.
It wouldn't be my first pick, but like, say for example, this wasn't the pandemic and we could actually play games more than 1 game a month. Yeah, I would throw it in a couple lists to try it out and see. Maybe it would surprise me.
It sounds really good from my point of view. Like, shit, 4-up rerolling 1s to reanimate those losers. Like, oh my god. But if I can just shoot that guy, okay, that's fine.
He's only like toughness 6 too. Like, he's not hard to kill.
I think he's tough 5.
Tough 5, so even worse. He's basically like, I think he's the defensive profile of like 2 aggressors.
Okay, like
yeah, he's not.
Okay, like Bertha takes that thing out in like a second.
Maybe he's small enough to hide behind terrain and still provide the benefit.
Maybe, yeah. Sure. Nick, go ahead.
I'll die on this hill.
Okay, how about Chaos? I heard Nurglings went up.
Yeah, I'm a Chaos player and I approve this message. Yeah. Well, Nurglings are borderline abusive, and I've had debates with some notable Chaos players about this, and like, look, I can appreciate that maybe Chaos, especially Demons, isn't exactly where you want in terms of troops, even though I think they're still pretty good. Nurglings, the ability to infiltrate, having units of 9, I think, it's abusive. On top of their, a demon save and demonic or disgusting resilient. So yeah, I think they went up 4 points from 18. Is that enough? I don't know. But it's definitely people that are taking units of 3, like I used to take like 1 or 2 units of 3. It's not going to change much. I can save that. People that are starting to take 20, 30 bases of them, they're going to have to change their list, which I appreciate because nobody wants to play against 30.
Nobody wants to play like 27 Nurgling bases or something.
So
like
does the change to discussing resilient affect these Nurglings then, or they get it some other way, or?
Nurglings actually, their discussing resilient got clarified as well. So are you referring to like the Death Guard one?
I don't know. Chaos confuses me.
Okay,
that's because the Death Guard version is going to change the new cards.
Death Guard version is going to change. I expect that the Demons one won't until their book changes, if it goes the same way. So for now, they're discussing resilience going to perhaps still play as the 5-up, ignore wounds mechanic. But for Nurglings in the FAQ, so Nurglings have their discussing resilient, but it only applies to attacks that have a damage of 1.
Yeah.
So there was a debate over the last edition whether you could do that against mortal wounds. Now they've clarified that their discussing resilient does not apply to mortal wounds.
Okay.
So it's only against weapons or attacks, that are damage 1. So if you damage 2 or 3 or damage D3, they don't get it. If you give them mortal wounds, they don't get it. So like those are two things, depending on how the player played the Nurglings, that kind of brings them down a bit. I'm not entirely sure if people bringing 30 Nurgling bases, if they're going to change their lists. Hopefully, but
I hope so.
Yeah, I don't think that's a. I mean, like, look, when the edition dropped, you saw how the missions played. It wasn't rocket science to figure out that Nurglings were good. I mean, you didn't pull any muscles coming up with that list. I'm just saying. So, anyways, I'm happy that they changed a bit.
Okay, so any other points changes you guys want to talk about in factions you guys play before we go on to talk a little bit about Death Guard?
Just one. Why did they have to increase the point of Imperial Guardsmen?
Yes.
Imperial Guard is already like in the trash. It's a terrible. Like it's basically better than Tau.
But they got cheaper Ogrins.
Okay, and that's good because when you compare Bullgrins to other stuff in the game, they did feel a little bit overcosted. But it says something about Guard that they were still the best Guard unit. So that one got brought down, but then Guardsmen gained a half point each because the squad went up by 5. That's just like I don't.
Yeah, that is weird.
Oh, the Guardsmen are excellent. They can move. They can double shoot,
and that's why Imperial Guard is winning all those tournaments.
What tournaments?
Oh, they're having them in Plagueland down in the States where they don't care and think.
Yeah, but are those actually good players going to them, or just plague zombies playing with their toys? Who knows?
Okay, Guardsmen went up. That's okay. I can hack that. I still got a bunch of Guardsmen over there. So, anything else, guys?
Death Guard changed. Well, Death Guard changed, but they're getting their new book that's pre-ordering on Saturday.
Let's talk about Death Guard.
I mean,
so other than Mortarion having 10 Warlord traits, what else can we expect from this new, seemingly obnoxious book?
Well, Plague Marines, I think, went to 21 points from 18. So we're seeing that the premium of the extra wound, and of course they're changing their, rule and whatever else, seems to be in the neighborhood of the 3-point mark. So who knows if that's signaling for other Chaos factions when they update. Cultists, Death Guard Cultists went down to 5 points from 6. And then Poxwalkers are also now 5 points.
That's up.
Poxwalkers is down. They used to be 6 or 7. Yeah, I can't remember if it's 6 or 7, but they used to be. So Poxwalkers are down. Mortarion, I think, went up slightly. And other ones went up. Like Death Shroud went up. They're at 50 points, but they seem to be pretty sticky now. So there's going to be a lot of changes to Death Guard that probably reflect the changes that they got in their profile.
So I saw today that the old Mortal Wound grenade thing doesn't work anymore, and the Plague Marine squad is now 10 people max size. So that was a very scary thing for us custodians that is now gone, which is nice.
The Plague Marine bomb? Yeah, the
grenade thing.
Putrefire? Okay. I missed that part.
Yeah, I think they changed the strat. So it's more just kind of like the Guard, when the Guard can like shoot their grenades. Anyway. And of course, I don't think you can run 20 Plague Marines in a unit anymore. So, but -1 damage across the whole army. What do you think of that?
I have to see the rest, but I like it personally. I really do like that. It
It's a
makes
lot
them.
better against damage too, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
It exposes them to damage one weapons more. Like so, bolters and stuff will have a bigger impact. But yeah, definitely
Eh,
heavy bolters and whatever damage whatever weapons out
I
there.
don't know.
It's definitely going to
I
make a
don't think they
difference.
care about that because they're T5, and so yeah, they don't care about small arms fire.
The
I think
vehicles
it's
get it
good.
by default now, so that's a big change.
Yeah, yeah, and so you add the extra wound, you would more 1 damage, so that's like a nice combo.
But you know what the biggest change is coming from someone who doesn't play Death Guard but who has played against Death Guard a lot? No more waiting for all the goddamn rolling before you know how much damage you've done. That's going to speed up the game
feel
a
no
lot,
pain.
and I am so glad.
Yeah, I gotta say, 5-up army-wide feel no pain was super obnoxious. Like,
I mean, that's kind of all that Death Guard had, but yeah, it's I'm happy with it. Less dice rolling. I like it's more consistent. Feel no pain is great until you don't roll it.
yeah, but
Or until you end up with a bunch of damage D3 shots going into 5-up feel no pains and having to try and work that
in
out.
like multi
Yeah, I
wound
love
models,
Death
yeah.
Guard. I love them. I have lots of them, and I'm going to be happy to just be like, okay, -1 damage. I don't have to roll anymore for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a lot of damage too in the game now. The heavy bolters are everywhere, and so it's
Well,
actually
imagine
pretty...
throwing 10 Plague Marines into Blade Guard now, and like, okay, thanks for your
Yeah.
damage 1 swords now.
Well,
Well, I mean, my Blade Guard are damaged 3 on the charge, but I know what you mean.
yeah, your freaking guys who don't even have melee weapons are doing 2 damage on the charge. Okay, like it's ridiculous. But yeah,
Fair and balanced.
I also think D3 is generally getting changed to like 2 or maybe 3 in some cases. So that -1 damage would be super handy for shit like that.
Death Shroud are now 2 damage and not
Yeah.
D3.
I also think getting rid of D3 speeds up the game because you don't have to roll your stupid D3s and then trying to add them up and make a mistake and because so okay, what how about Mortarion? How has he changed other than getting like 6 warlord traits?
Well, he's got the Warlord traits. He's also got what I noticed in his rules, revoltingly resilient. So
Which we
I'm not
don't know
entirely
what that
sure.
is yet.
Yeah, exactly. So he has disgusting resilience. So he's got the -1 damage. Revoltingly resilient. Is that the new 5+++?
Now, if he's got -1 damage and a feel no pain, now that's spicy.
I am going to dig him out, paint him,
How about -2 damage?
and I will be. Oh, that would be great. Yeah, he'll never die.
And he's T8, so
Yeah, he's T8 now. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, to be fair, he should always have been T8. Like, it made no
Yeah.
sense to me that
Can
he's
he-
T7.
I think I'd like for him to be playable now, or like more than just
Can
gimmicky
he
playable.
Looks like
can he still do 52 hits?
They got rid of, actually, as far as I can tell, Death of the False
Oh,
Emperor.
Yeah, because it's not on the data sheet. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that was bad game design because it's a rule that only works against a subset like that. Is just bad.
A
game
large
design.
subset, though.
And I understand. Sure, but I understand that Chaos players loved their Death to the False Emperor, and it was a fluffy rule, and it kind of made sense, quote unquote. But it's just it adds a degree of complexity in balancing the game when your army suddenly gets a power up against only certain other factions.
Francois was referring to the time I think my Demon Prince just mangled his knight because of Death of the False Emperor.
I think I must have blocked out that memory. but
Dude,
yes, that's
dude,
probably...
okay, 52 hits on me. Enough said. Okay.
Yeah, more, and the way that exploding hits worked with attacks becoming multiple attacks, that's also something that I think going forward they should fix just in general. Because if you have an attack that splits into 3 attacks and then one of those explodes, you shouldn't go back to the prior step and then again get 3 more. Right? Doesn't matter who you are.
The flail.
The flail is the
enjoy-
one I'm thinking about, but knights have something similar where they can do exploding
Yeah.
6s sometimes.
They
and
need
they're...
to.
Well, at least the flail now doesn't Death the False Emperor, so it's not going to explode and explode and explode.
I've seen that flail do some crazy
Yeah.
stuff, and when it happens, it's funny and it's flavorful and it's a memorable moment, which in a way is good. But it can be game
21
breaking.
hits.
Oh yeah,
I got hit by
100%.
21 hits
100%.
by the stupid flail. Thanks, Will Paul. But yeah. So okay, cool. So Mortarion is tougher perhaps very much tougher. And he probably still hits pretty hard, although not 52 times. So that's kind of the summary. I think his gun changed or something too.
Yeah, some others. I haven't really studied him super deep. I'm just waiting for the
Okay,
book.
how about those super annoying Blight Lord things that you can like not kill?
They seem to have changed.
They got faster because
Yeah,
they're no
they
longer
can.
Carafracti.
Yeah, so they don't half their movement speed when they run, so they can actually get places. They're not stuck in one spot the whole game, so that's nice. Apparently, there's been other changes. I'm not entirely sure. I know Death Shroud have changed. They got the extra wound. Death Shroud actually have 2 attack profiles now, which is nice. They're 1 big attack, which is 2 damage, and like +3 strength and -4 AP or whatever it is. But they also have like a sweeping attack where they get 2 attacks per if they ever get bogged down in a lot of smaller models. So that's kind of nice. And all of these units seem to have these equipment like chimes or whatever that might play a role into how the new contagion rules work. Whereas that's going to be interesting. I can't wait to read about that. Where as the game goes on, the radius around or the auras around Death Guard increases, which debuffs the enemy army. So one of the one that they previewed was -1 toughness. But apparently, I don't know if it's just a warlord trait, but there's another one that's like half movement speed.
Yeah.
There's another way, so.
Yeah, that one is interesting because it means if you fall back from a character, he can then immediately heroically intervene you again because you're only 3 inches away.
Those like -1 toughness is so good. Like I used to think -1 strength on Grim Responsibility was not good, but actually it's really so good. And in almost all situations is actually just a cheap transhuman or better. So -1 toughness is like gonna be like, Marines, you're now T3 suckers.
Yeah,
or
really
anything like Guardsmen or Eldar are suddenly toughness 2 and getting shot by strength 4 bolters.
Well, yeah, you imagine like your Plague Marines get into combat with Orcs. They're wounding on 3s now, getting combat with Guardsmen or Eldar, wounding on 2s. Marines, if they're getting into Gravis armor, now they're wounding on 4s and not 5s. Like it's almost across the board a great change. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's really strong. And super annoying to deal with for sure. Well, you can't really do anything about it, right? So yeah, it's really strong. So I'm pretty sure that they kind of extra tricks in there. I feel like the stupid bloat drone now is more obnoxious than normal. 12 attacks or something, damage 2 attacks in combat. Oh, that thing is just annoying. How about the Plague Burst Crawler? Is that changing at all? Because that thing is annoying too.
Well, as far as I could tell, like I think the points went down for it a bit. But I'm not entirely sure. They haven't really.
Well, it's going to get the -1 damage by default, which is already a pretty
nice.
big deal.
Yeah,
if you're shooting it with, it's already really hard to kill. And if now, because it's toughness 8, right, and it's got the demon save, and if you're shooting it with damage 2 weapon, you're cutting your output in half. If you're shooting it with damage D3 or D6 weapon, you're also cutting down your output on average by quite a lot.
Just use New Melta, man. Woo!
Well, yeah, that's the thing. So the new Disgustingly Resilient becomes much worse against Melta.
Yeah, because that 5-up Feel No Pain would save you so many wounds.
Yeah, because if let's say you're playing against Sisters, to use an example of people that have really powerful Melta, well, if they have a Miracle Dice or they get lucky on the roll, all of a sudden they do 8 damage to you, which becomes 7. But on average, the old Feel No Pain would bring that down to a 5 or a 6, right?
Yeah, for sure. Feel No Pain on those vehicles was really strong. But yeah, there you go. But apparently went up 15 points, says the chat.
Oh, went up 15. Oh, I could be wrong then. Yeah, I haven't played in a while.
Well, that's because now it gets the Disgustingly Resilient by default. You used to have to pay CP for it, right?
Plague Burst Crawler always had it.
Oh, okay. Oh, right, because they're demons. I'm thinking...
It was the Defiler.
Oh, the Rhinos and the... Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk about fear our demon engines. Are they just talking about the Plague Crawler and the Blight Haulers and the drones? Or are we going to see Defilers and...
Depends what they do. Maybe we see Defilers. I doubt it, but it would be nice to see Lord Discordance. But I doubt those will be in the book. Actually, we probably know, because if we look in the points, there doesn't seem to be points for Lord Discordance. So they don't.
It's also going to matter what they do with the plague companies, because we don't know if they're going to stay the same or change. They're probably going to change to some degree.
Yeah. Well, what the most exciting thing about Death Guard for me is what it's foreshadowing for other Chaos factions. That they really think that they're adding this like different layers of rules that really encourage you to go mono faction. I don't know if it necessarily is game breaking or you lose that much if you want to soup, but definitely adds a layer of rules that you get for mono faction promoting that, and I like that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that means for Thousand Suns.
Well, what's interesting is that, Marines and Chaos Space Marines were kind of the same. So you had normal Marines, and then you had Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Dark Angels, and then Chaos. You had Chaos Space Marines, and then you had Thousand Suns, Death Guard, and whatever. But the dudes in the normal Chaos Space Marine book hardly got shit, right? Compared to Marine chapters, right? And now, as of last time, they got all their own supplements and shit now. So will Chaos Space Marine chapters, Night Lords and whatever, I can't remember, will they get supplements? Should they get supplements?
That'd be nice.
You already kind of have it with the Rubric Marines and the Plague Marines. I guess it'd be nice to see a Berserker kind of Khorne Berserker.
Well, should we see Word Bearers supplement? Should we see, whatever the Khorne one's called? I can't remember. World Eaters. Should we see
World Eaters,
Alpha Legion, Night Lords? Like, should we see the same thing but for Chaos?
I think Chaos players would appreciate that, but I don't know if that's what's going to happen. But yeah, that would be nice for sure.
There's room to flesh out their rules, even if it's in one big book. Like what they've done with the Space Marines is that they've actually recentered a bunch of stuff in the Space Marine Codex. So if they do a Chaos Space Marine book and they do it along similar lines, there's definitely room to flesh out your Iron Warriors. And
well, I mean, even what they did with the Psychic Awakening, where they added the extra stratagems and the extra equipment for the different legions, that was a lot that made that made a big difference in terms of how you played. Like Iron Warriors look different, Night Lords look different. Your Alpha Legion definitely looked different from the other ones. People played their World Eaters a lot differently, so that did go a long way in terms of giving more flavor and making it more significant to choose how you choose your Legion versus whatever -1 Alpha.
I think though, if they do that, then they have to make it harder for you to build these crazy Chaos soup lists.
I am not opposed to minimizing or reducing soup and Chaos. I've abused the hell out of it over the years, don't get me wrong. But, when you starting to have your detachments inside your detachments have different characters be different legions because they're accessing different things from a different detachment, that's when it starts to get a little out of control, because not only is it hard for you as the player that's playing keeping track of all that, it's hard for your opponent to keep track. And then it's hard for them to have confidence that you're not just straight up cheating.
Sometimes it feels like that, even if you're not.
Totally cheating.
Sure, for sure.
I always knew you were cheating, Nick.
You're pulling stuff from like 7 different books, and from the other side of the table, your opponent feels like something fishy's going on, even when there isn't.
In my opinion, if they were to encourage souping, I would hope it'd be more along the Chaos God line. So, like, if you were to soup, you were more Nurgle souped or Tzeentch souped or Slaanesh. Like, you'd have your Nurgle demons. Nurgle soup.
Well, I hope like the rest of the game's factions that they try and disincentivize souping.
Well, it seems like that's what they've been doing recently.
Yeah,
definitely did it with Space Marines. Sisters also have stuff that they lose if they don't.
Death Guard now the contagion is only if you're pure Death Guard. I mean, Necrons they can't soup, but if you switch dynasties, you don't get the code. So they're really trying to maintain like a pure faction.
It definitely looks like that's where they're going, and I appreciate that. I like that.
I do agree that those Chaos Space Marine factions maybe should get just a little bit more to make it viable to not have to add a bunch of different factions from different armies. But in the same vein, then they need to carry on the trend, which is to basically cut soup. And Chaos was the ultimate culprit when it came to souping, for sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, guys, that was a good chat and run through of this release. And so we look forward to the Death Guard book. Well, you look forward to it. I don't look forward to it. But I
look forward to playing against it.
to doing something on the tabletop. So any last words, guys? I don't think... Oh, questions. All right, questions in the chat. Let me hit the Discord here. All right, here we go. I'm going to skip all the Custodes questions.
Because we don't care about those.
I already did that. Okay, Custodes question.
Pizza or wings?
Okay, which faction do you think did best with these points changes? And which did worst? Well, I mean, Drukhar is a clear winner. Their whole codex went down, basically.
Other than Drukhari, like there's nothing's major enough for me to say that there's a clear winner or loser. Like, I mean, everyone got a little something, and so when you balance it out in the end, it kind of probably comes out in the wash. Like Eldar got cheaper troops, which is good. They needed it, but like, is it going to suddenly make them that much better?
Happiest players would probably be Grey Knight players, because it gives them a little bit more breathing room when they play games. But other than that, I'm not entirely sure what the biggest winner is.
I think the biggest losers, Tau and GSC.
Way to kick them.
I got to kick Tau at every opportunity. Again, they never stopped paying for the sins of the past. So Tau was a big loser, and GSC hardly got any changes, and in that way they kind of lost because they're really nowhere right now, except for Dustin. So big losers. Okay. Hobby question. Okay. Any other non-Custodes questions? Pizza or wings?
Pizza.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. A good pound of good wings. Good wings. Not the crap you get in like wing places like these days, but good wings. Hard to beat.
Darren wants to go find the chicken himself. Cut down the wing.
Yeah, exactly. Some chicken raised on some mountain in Nepal, that eats only one flower.
Yeah. And they have to have friends and have to play well together. All right. Last question about Marines, which we talked about. Okay. So thanks for joining, guys. And I hope everybody out there staying safe. Do obey the isolation, the lockdown, please. So stay safe. Thank you for supporting. And we will be on the air again tomorrow night as Charity Hammer, as Hammer Out Cancer. So please tune in, charityhammer.com for donations and for the full weekend schedule starting tomorrow. So we will see people next week after a hectic weekend of gaming. And everybody stay safe and good night.